Sometimes you just find these really fascinating connections. Like you take this huge Japanese rock band, right?
Yeah.
And they name themselves after a French phrase, meaning the rainbow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's just that kind of unexpected mix. Cultures, art, it grabs you. And, well, that's where we're headed today.
That's a great hook. And the name itself, en-Ciel, which you'd say kind of like lark on seal.
Roughly, yeah.
It kind of hints at all the layers, the like musical color we're going to get into.
Absolutely. So, yeah, this deep dive, it's all about en-Ciel, iconic Japanese rock band, 4 members currently, formed way back 1991, Osaka.
Right. Started by the bassist, Tetsuya.
Hmm.
And the lineup people know best now is Hyde on vocals, Ken on guitar, Tetsuya still on bass, obviously, and Yukihiro on drums.
But like any band with that kind of history, there were others involved early on, right? Important figures.
Definitely. You had Hiro on guitar originally, and then drummers Pero and Sakura. They were all
Yeah.
key parts of the story at different times.
And the music itself. Wow, it's been quite the ride. Started out with some like 80s new wave influences.
Yeah, you can hear that. And post-punk, too, that kind of raw energy.
Then they weave in grunge, heavier guitars, bit angsty.
Uh-huh. And alternative rock. Definitely that move away from the mainstream.
But they really ended up forging their own thing, a unique pop sound, but like the arrangements are always so diverse, never just predictable.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that all 4 current members, they're all main composers.
Oh, really? That's not always the case.
No, it's pretty democratic, actually. And probably a big reason why their music is just so varied. Everyone brings their own flavor.
Okay, so let's dig into how it all started, because the sources we've got today, they paint a really compelling picture of how en-Ciel actually came together.
Yeah, let's do it. We're going to look at those first sparks, some of their, well, pretty unconventional early moves.
Right, and how that laid the groundwork for the legacy they're still building.
It really makes you wonder, how did this specific group of people, who ended up making such distinctive music, even find each other?
Well, the main engine, especially at the start, seems to have been Tetsuya. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, he was working at this place called Waltz, a record store in Osaka.
Okay.
And he wasn't just like putting records away, he was actively looking, hunting for band members, had a vision.
And that record store job, it turned out to be pretty crucial, didn't it?
Yeah, totally. That's how he connected with Sammy, the singer from a band called Billy and the S-Lutes, who were pretty known in Osaka then.
Right. And that introduction led him to Hiro, Lark's first guitarist.
Exactly. And apparently Tetsuya first tried to form something just with Hiro, but musically it maybe wasn't quite clicking.
No.
But Tetsuya, he kept looking, hanging out at live houses, scouting, and then there was this studio session. Kind of random, but super important.
How so?
Well, some guitarist needed a bassist for a recording, invited Tetsuya, and boom, that's the first time Tetsuya meets Hyde, who was going by Hyde then, and also the drummer, Pero.
Wow. Talk about being in the right place at the right time. These origin stories often have those little moments of chance, don't they?
Totally. And get this, Hyde was also looking for band members around Osaka at the same time, independently.
No way.
Yeah, and he'd already linked up with Perot, who was in a band called Kitty Bombs. So, like, these parallel searches were happening.
That's wild. So Hyde and Perot actually formed another band first.
Yeah, called Gelserum's Rod with some other guys. And it was the other members of that band, minus their bassist, who ended up in that studio session with Tetsuya.
Okay, my head's spinning a little bit trying to keep track. So you've got bits of different bands all coming together.
Exactly. So, Tetsuya, Hyde, Perot playing together for the first time ever. What happened?
Yeah, was it instant magic? Fireworks?
Well, according to Tetsuya, he just knew. Like this immediate gut feeling. He felt that Hyde, Perot, and Haro together, that was going to be something special.
Just an intuition. Wow.
Yeah, and that feeling made him really determined to get Hyde and Perot on board. But it wasn't like an immediate yes.
Right, because Hyde had his own new band.
Exactly. Hyde initially said no because Gelserum's Rod was so fresh. But Tetsuya didn't give up. He started going to their shows, kept calling them, persistent.
And Pero was maybe more open to it.
Seems like it. The story goes, Pero basically said he'd join if Hyde did, so, the ball was kind of in Hyde's court.
Okay, so what finally tipped the scales for Hyde?
He eventually agreed to just, jam with Tetsuya. And it was during one of those sessions, maybe around February 91, with Hyde, Tetsuya, Pero, and Hiro all playing.
Yeah.
That's when the chemistry really hit. Hyde himself felt it was just, a different level compared to his other band.
Okay, that click moment.
Right. So he decided to break up Gelserum's rod, and bam, en-Ciel was officially formed. Hyde, Hiro, Tetsuya, Pero.
It's amazing how those pieces fell into place. And you mentioned other connections, too, like Takanori Nishikawa.
Yeah, TM Revolution. Apparently, he was involved in some of Tetsuya's really early jam sessions, too. Just shows how tight-knit that Osaka scene must have been.
It really does. Like this melting pot of future stars just bumping into each other.
And the coincidences keep coming.
Yeah.
Ken, who joined later on guitar,
Yeah.
he was actually Tetsuya's childhood friend and had even seen Ark play live, just as a fan in the audience.
Get out of here. That's incredible.
And Sakura, the drummer after Perot, he used to be a roadie for the drummer of Dead End.
Another band Tetsuya knew from the record store. See, it all loops back.
It really does. And Yukihiro, the current drummer, his connection is even more, roundabout.
Okay, go on.
He was the drummer for Z.I. Kill, and Tetsuya apparently ran into him at a live house on the exact same day he had first invited that other guitarist, the one who introduced him, to Hyde and Perot to that crucial first session.
Okay, that's starting to feel less like coincidence and more like something else.
Right. It kind of leads into that whole 7 colors of the rainbow thing people talk about.
Yeah, because there have been 7 members in total over the years.
Exactly. Hyde, Tetsuya, Ken, Yukihiro, Hiro, Pero, Sakura, 7 guys. And Tetsuya himself has kind of mused about it, hinting that maybe it was, fate.
It's a nice way to think about it. Poetic. And it makes sense why they always anchor their anniversaries to 1991, that formation year. That's the core.
Totally. Okay, so the band is formed, the key players are there. Let's talk about the name en-Ciel. How did that come about?
Well, sounds like the original 4 guys were all throwing names around. Standard band stuff.
Uh-huh.
But it was Tetsuya who suggested l'en-Ciel, French for the rainbow. He also talked about it meaning bridge in the sky, which is a really cool image.
Yeah, it is. And you see it written slightly differently sometimes, right? With the little squiggle, the tilde over the C, and sometimes just with a hyphen.
Yeah, the tilde seems more like a stylistic thing they use in logos and stuff sometimes. But the meaning, the pronunciation, it's basically the same.
So why that name? Did he just like rainbows?
Maybe. But he said he was actually searching through books looking for a name. He found the phrase there.
Oh, okay. So it was deliberate search. What drew him to it?
He mentioned a few things. The visual beauty of a rainbow, obviously. The sound of the French words, kind of elegant. And also the connection to expressing lots of musical colors, which fits their diverse sound. And interestingly, he also felt it had a kind of fashion brand vibe.
Really? Like a designer label that's specific for a new rock band.
I know, right? Kind of forward-thinking, maybe? He thought it sounded sophisticated.
What did Hyde think about it?
Hyde's take was interesting, too. He mentioned that maybe they went for French because it felt like all the good English band names were already taken.
Fair point.
But he also agreed that the name, with the whole color idea, really suited the varied music they were starting to make.
So different reasons, but they both landed on it. And it wasn't just the name that had that artistic touch from the start.
No, not at all. Hyde had gone to art school, had a design background.
Wow.
So he designed their first logo, all their early flyers, stuff like that. He was even using the color copier at his part-time packing job to print them.
Wow. Talk about resourcefulness. That's some serious DIY effort.
Totally. Commitment to the image right from day one.
And the origin of the name. They've had to correct people on that, haven't they? There's some rumor.
Yeah, this persistent urban legend that they named themselves after a cafe in Umeda in Osaka.
Oh, right. I think I've heard that.
But Tetsuya has shot that down so many times. He's like, why would we name our band after a coffee shop? Makes sense. He even joked about seeing it wrong on Wikipedia for ages.
It's funny how those stories stick. And the name obviously inspired their fan clubs, too.
Exactly. The first one in 95 was just Ciel. Then later, around 2000, it became en-Ciel.
Both meaning sky in French.
Yep. Fits perfectly right. The fans of the sky, the band is the rainbow bridging it. Nice symbolism.
Okay, so lineup, check. Name, check. What about actually getting out there? Your sources suggest they didn't really follow the usual path for new bands back then.
Yeah, that's a really crucial part of their early story. Their very first gig, Namba Rockets, May 91. Apparently drew a pretty decent crowd.
For a first show, that's unusual.
Right. And their first solo show there, just a few months later in September, pulled in even more people. They weren't playing to empty rooms for long.
So was it just luck? Or
Well, partly maybe Hiro's old band gave them some initial recognition, but a lot of it seems down to Tetsuya's strategic thinking, his promotional ideas.
like what?
Hyde remembered Tetsuya already having a mailing list, sending out actual direct mail to people, and yeah, definitely leveraging Hiro's existing fan base to get those first ears listening.
A mailing list. In 1991, that's organized. And where did he get the names?
Well, Tetsuya admitted he might have used customer lists from the record store he worked at.
No. Seriously?
Yeah, he kind of joked that you definitely couldn't get away with that now, privacy rules and all, but it shows that real, guerrilla marketing drive.
Wow. Okay, that's definitely unconventional. What else did they do differently?
Well, they didn't sell demo tapes, which was the thing for indie bands then, right? To make cash get heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And they didn't tour endlessly either.
Nope. Very limited shows, maybe once a month, no big tours at the start. They focused on making each gig feel like an event, created scarcity.
Made you want to be there.
Exactly. And get this, they'd only announce the next gig at the current one.
Oh, clever. So you had to be there to know or rely on word of mouth.
Right. Builds buzz, make sure people show up next time. Really smart, actually.
And they weren't just waiting to be found.
No way. Band members were apparently sending their info packs, like press kits,
Right.
directly to music magazine editors. Really proactive.
Taking control. And focusing on Osaka first. That sounds smart, too.
Yeah, Hyde mentioned that. Build a strong base locally before tackling Tokyo. Solid strategy.
So why no demos then, if they weren't touring much?
Yeah, Tetsuya's reasoning was interesting. He wanted people's first experience of their music to be live. The energy, the performance, and he only wanted to release recordings when they were totally happy with them. They even apparently turned down some early label interest because they didn't feel ready.
Wow, that takes guts. And confidence in their own vision.
Definitely. And that sort of controlled image extended to fan interaction, too.
How so?
They didn't really do the typical hanging out with fans after shows, that kind of thing. Kept a bit more distance, maybe added to the mystique, more professional vibe.
And they even had roadies right from the start.
Yeah.
To avoid carrying their own gear.
Yeah. All part of presenting themselves as a serious professional outfit from day one, not just some garage band.
Tetsuya, looking back on it, he kind of said they were intentionally creating the perception of being popular, right?
Yeah, like projecting success before it fully hit. Sort of a fake it till you make it approach, but very strategically done.
And it worked. They were filling venues for solo shows pretty early on, didn't have to do the opening act grind for too long.
Right. Tetsuya even kind of joked that they didn't really struggle in the typical band sense. He put it down to focused effort, not just working hard blindly. Smart work over hard work, maybe.
And they preferred doing their own shows early on.
Yeah, apparently they didn't love the chaos of multi-band gigs backstage.
Yeah.
Wanted control over their own thing.
Makes sense. But they did play with Kuryume early on.
Yeah, that was a notable exception.
Yeah.
Tetsuya saw it as good for both bands. And he actually considered Kuryume their biggest rival back then.
Really? Wow. Intense.
Yeah, adds a bit of competitive spice to the early days.
Hmm.
Funny thing is, now Kiyoharu from Kuryume is friends with the ARC guys. Time changes things.
For sure. Okay, so strong Osaka base, unique name, clever strategy. What happens when they start looking beyond Osaka, towards Tokyo?
Right, so 1992 is when they really make the move to expand their activities to Tokyo. Big step.
But it wasn't totally smooth sailing. There was a lineup change.
Yeah, Hiro, the original guitarist, left in June 92. But interestingly, Ken joined almost straight away, like immediately after.
Wow, quick transition. Was Ken already lined up?
Well, he's a Tetsuya's childhood friend, remember? So the connection was there. Seemed pretty seamless.
Okay. And they still managed to get music recorded.
Yep, their first officially recorded track, Voice E, came out on an omnibus album called Gimmick in October 92. Little taste of their sound then.
I read something about a whole album getting scrapped around then. That sounds rough.
Yeah, that was a major hurdle. They'd worked on a full album, but apparently they weren't happy with it. And Hiro also asked them not to use his songs after he left.
Oh, okay. Complicated.
Yeah, it caused some problems with their first agency, too. A bit messy.
So how did they bounce back from that? A scrapped album is a big deal.
They ended up moving labels to Danger Crew Records, which is Maverick now. And to sort of deal with the financial fallout from the scrapped album, they put out a limited single, Floods of Tears and Tia.
Ah, okay. A way to keep things moving.
Exactly. And it was during this kind of tricky period that Tetsuya officially became the band leader. Apparently, Hyde suggested it.
Interesting. Hyde saw the need for clear leadership then.
Seems like it. Felt Tetsuya had the vision, the organizational skills needed to steer them through.
But the changes weren't over. Pero left too.
Yeah. The drummer, Pero, left in December 92, so they needed a drummer again.
And that's when Sakura came in.
That's right. Sakura joined in January 93. And that lineup, Hyde, Ken, Tetsuya, Sakura, is one a lot of early fans really remember fondly. Felt like a stable, powerful unit.
And with Sakura settled in, they finally released their first proper album.
Yep. Dune came out in 93 on Danger Crew. And it did really well on the indie charts, even hit #1.
That must have felt good after the scrapped album drama. Real validation.
Totally. And that indie success definitely got the majors interested again. They signed with Keon Sony in 93.
Any reason they chose Keon Sony specifically?
Yeah, Tetsuya mentioned he just really liked the A&R guy, the representative from the label. That personal connection mattered.
Fair enough. So, major label debut time. When was that?
July 1st, 1994. They debuted with a video single, actually, called Mimuri. Yes, that thing.
Oh, a video single. Okay, different.
Yeah. And then their second album, Tierra, followed really quickly, later that same month. And their first proper CD single on the major label, Blurry Eyes, came out that October. Things were moving fast.
And the sound during this early major period, what was it like? Still got those earlier influences.
Yeah, definitely. You could still hear hints of new wave, maybe some gothic rock vibes. The Cure was mentioned as an influence they liked, especially for the moodier stuff. Darker, atmospheric bits mixed with the melodies.
And did they make a big deal out of the major debut, big announcement?
Interestingly, no. Tetsuya apparently wasn't keen on the whole major debut concert spectacle that some bands did. Preferred to just let the music come out.
Keeping it low-key. But did the success translate immediately? Were they selling out big venues right away?
Actually, no. They had some initial struggles selling out shows right after the major debut, even with a label backing.
Oh, really? After the indie success?
Yeah, which led them to basically take back control of their concert planning and promotion, kind of like they did in the early days. They knew their audience best.
Smart move. Trusting your own instincts again. And the fan club started around then, too.
Yep, January 95, en-Ciel was launched, building that direct connection.
And they kept busy, touring, new music.
Oh, yeah, constantly touring. They were even playing songs from their next album, Heavenly, live before it was even released in September 95. Kept fans engaged.
And that period had some big milestones, right? Playing the Budokan.
Yes, their first Nippon Budokan show was during that tour Heavenly 95. Huge moment for any Japanese band. Signified they'd really arrived.
And they sold out the Tokyo Bay NK Hall, too, after not filling it before.
Exactly. The Kiss Me Heavenly Deadly 96 revenge show. Showed their drawing power in Tokyo is seriously growing.
Okay, so things are building. Then comes the lead up to the fourth album, True. That had some big hits.
Definitely. Singles like Flower were huge. True came out December 96, and it felt like a real culmination.
And they changed their approach a bit for that album, production-wise.
Yeah, that was the first one where they brought in multiple co-producers. The idea was apparently to get a slightly more polished, maybe more pop-friendly sound.
Why this shift?
Well, the perception was maybe the earlier, more self-produced albums hadn't sold quite as much as they could have. So it was a conscious move to broaden their appeal.
And did it work?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
True was their first album to hit #1 on the Oricon charts.
Yeah.
And their first million seller. Massive breakthrough. Huge.
Wow. Okay, so they're hitting the big time now. More visibility, TV.
Yeah, lots more TV appearances around then for promotion. Hyde apparently wasn't super thrilled about doing tons of TV initially, but saw it as necessary to get the music out there.
Understandable. And they did their first arena tour?
Yep. The Carnival of True Tour, 96 into 97. Playing massive venues. They were really at the top of their game.
It sounds like everything was just peaking, but then something major happened.
Yeah. Right at that peak, February 1997, Sakura, the drummer, was arrested on drug charges.
Oh, wow. That's sudden.
Completely. Everything just stopped. All band activities canceled. Their music got pulled from shelves temporarily. The band went on hiatus. Just silence. A huge, unexpected blow right when they were flying highest.
Man. From starting in Osaka, building it all up, that indie success, the major breakthrough, hitting #1, selling millions, playing arenas, and then just nothing. That's dramatic.
It really is a massive cliffhanger in their story.
Right.
But crucially, not the end of it. It was a really dark, difficult time, no doubt, but they eventually found a way through it. Showed incredible resilience, really. Became part of their whole narrative.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up a bit. We've gone through en-Ciel's early years in this deep dive. We saw how Tetsuya's drive really got things started, brought those first members together.
Right, how that beautiful French name, the Rainbow, wasn't just random, it had layers of meaning for them.
And how their strategy early on was, well, pretty unique. Going against the grain, not doing the demo thing, creating exclusivity, and it worked.
Yeah, that unconventional approach definitely seemed to fuel their initial rise. It built this strong foundation, this distinct identity.
And that foundation helped them navigate the lineup changes, the scrapped album, all those early challenges, and achieve success pretty quickly.
It really did. Even leading up to that huge success with True, and then facing that sudden crisis.
So thinking about takeaways from all this,
Mm.
what does it leave you with? For me, maybe it's that sometimes not following the standard playbook is the way to go.
Yeah, that unconventional thinking can lead to really remarkable things. And also the importance of having that clear vision, that passion right from the start. It helps you weather the storms, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That resilience comes from somewhere.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought. Think about how en-Ciel, right from the beginning, kind of rejected that whole struggling artist narrative that's so common.
Yeah, they didn't lean into the struggle, did they? They projected professionalism.
Exactly. They intentionally crafted an image and experience, even before they had massive validation. How much does consciously shaping that perception contribute to long-term success? In any field, really.
That's a great question. What parts of their deliberate, maybe even slightly calculated early approach could someone listening apply? Maybe in a totally different context to their own work, their own projects, something to chew on.